Hello, this is Todd Wall from Aquatongue Media, and I wanted to discuss an article that I thought was pretty interesting. But before I did that, there's a process that I go through each day. I search through news stories. I have certain filters that I use to try to find articles I think will be interesting to discuss. And there was another article I was considering talking about today, and that article, like this article, was focused on California. And I find that California really offers a very rich vein of material to kind of discuss. The other article that I was considering was relating to a lawsuit that had been filed in California. A federal judge specifically had thrown out a lawsuit that was filed by landlords against Alameda County and the city of Oakland. During the COVID pandemic, there was an eviction moratorium, and that eviction moratorium extended for multiple years in both Oakland and Alameda County. I think Oakland in particular had one of the longest bans in all of the country. And some of these landlords filed a lawsuit basically claiming that these eviction bans have essentially amounted to an illegal taking by the government. This judge just recently denied that, claimed that that was not the case. But I do find that California is pretty interesting. It offers a lot of stories. Like I said, California historically, and I think continues to be on the cutting edge of what's happening in the country. And a lot of times the direction that we go as a country is shaped and determined in California. So I always think it's interesting to talk about stories that originate or take place in California. But this story in particular, the title is, "Should Your Car Warn You That You're Speeding? California Lawmakers Vote Yes." And so the article begins, when California State Senator Scott Weiner introduced a bill to limit speeding earlier this year, he expected some pushback. Still, the intensity of that response caught the Democratic lawmaker from San Francisco by surprise. "It did touch a nerve," Weiner said in an interview. "The day that I announced the original version of the bill, one of my very best friends in the world texted me to tell me what a terrible idea it was. And then 10 minutes later, his boyfriend texted me to say, 'Thank you for getting my boyfriend to slow down.'" So that's an interesting anecdote that Weiner shared. The article continues, "Your car probably tells you when you're running out of gas. It might alert you when you drift out of your lane." I know my car actually does that. When I drift out of the lane and I don't have my turn signal on, I get a beeping noise. Actually, my car also, when I don't keep my hands on the wheel, it will let me know. It somehow detects if I'm not holding tightly on the wheel. The article continues, "Now California lawmakers want to go a step further, requiring technology in your car to warn you when you're speeding. Safety advocates say speed assistance technology can reduce traffic deaths, but critics say California is moving too fast. What they're trying to do is impose their will on the rest of the country," says Jay Bieber with the National Motorist Association, a driver advocacy group. To understand why Weiner's bill has been so divisive, it helps to know how speed assistance technology works. There's an active version which can physically stop drivers from exceeding the speed limit, but there's also a passive version of speed assistance that only warns the driver when they're going too fast. So I think initially Weiner was actually proposing some kind of technology that would prevent the car from exceeding a certain speed. I guess it would detect when you were it would somehow have this technology that would detect, if you were on a highway and the speed limit was 65, it might prevent you from exceeding 10 miles above that, so cap the speed at 75. If you were in a residential area where the speed limit was much lower, presumably the technology in the car would let you know, it would not only let you know, it would prohibit you from exceeding 10 miles above whatever that lower speed limit would be, whatever that speed limit that would be appropriate for a residential area. So after the initial pushback, Weiner changed the bill from active to passive. He said, "We listened and we heard," Weiner said. "Once we looked at the studies, we saw the passive speed limiter is also highly effective, and so I was comfortable making that change." There were political calculations involved as well. The bill would not have passed with the active speed limiter, Weiner conceded, and it did pass with the passive speed limiter. I think the reason is the technology is still probably unproven. You don't want the case where basically it's misreading the speed and preventing, from exceeding a certain speed, um, or some threshold above where the speed limit is. It could have that wrong, and I think there's just a lot of people who don't like the idea of having a car that can actively prohibit you from exceeding a certain speed. The article continues, the bill approved by the California legislature over the weekend would require all new cars sold in the state to warn drivers if they're going more than 10 miles per hour above the speed limit. California would be the first state in the country to mandate speed assistance technology, starting with the 2030 model. The bill has some big backers, including the National Transportation Safety Board. And they have a quote here, broad deployment of intelligent speed assistance would reduce the frequency of speeding and speeding-related crashes, saving lives and preventing injuries, the NTSB wrote in support of the California bill, and we applaud you for pursuing this policy. The NTSB can make recommendations, but it cannot force automakers to add speed assistance. So they can give their opinion. They think this is a good thing. They think it's going to reduce traffic deaths, but they don't have the ability to actually enforce that, as a matter of law. Critics of the California bill say it's too much too soon. The technology is not perfect. Bieber said in an interview, you're going to have a lot of false positives. I guess that could be true. My car, which does basically prevent me or give me an indication when I'm, swerving. And if I'm basically like swerving out of my traffic lane, it will detect that and will make a beeping noise. If I have my turn signal on and I'm indicating to traffic like I'm intending to go into the next lane, it will not make that. It will not make that beeping noise or whatever, that warning noise. Unfortunately, our cars right now are kind of in the business of distracting us, Bieber said. I think this increases distracted driving. The auto industry doesn't like the speed assistance bill either. Speed assistance systems rely on clear and visible speed limit signs placed at regular intervals to function properly, wrote the Alliance for Automotive Innovation and Industry Trade Group in comments opposing the bill. So you've got the NTSB that's in favor of the bill, and you've got these industry groups and driving groups that are basically against the bill. They don't want any kind of distraction, is what they're claiming, or prohibition against them being able to, operate their vehicle as they determine. I think their concern, again, is that if the technology is not working well, it can give you false alarms. It can tell you you're speeding when you're not. And so, technology is still being developed. And so I think that's one of the primary concerns. The article continues, that sort of infrastructure is in place in Europe, where passive speed assistance is already mandatory, but it is severely lacking in the U.S. As a result, most intelligent speed assist systems are glitchy and unreliable. It's another example of California's overreach, said Karen Bailey Chapman with the Specialty Equipment Market Association and Industry Trade Group said in an interview. California is a huge market for car makers, and Bailey Chapman said the state is trying to bully its way into setting policy for the whole country. I think that's probably true. I think California does fashion itself as kind of being very progressive and kind of setting trends in the rest of the country. It could be the case that basically if automakers were required to meet this requirement for California, that they would just, install these systems for all cars they develop and sell within the U.S. And I think that's probably some of the concern you would have from some of these industry trade groups and, driving enthusiast groups. We believe that the authority for regulation stands firmly within the federal government, she said. The article continues, but the bill sponsor, Weiner, says California can't wait for federal regulations. I would love for the federal government to require this technology nationally, he said, but there's no real indication that the federal government's going to do that. And so some people are saying, well, unfortunately, California shouldn't have the ability to pass laws which could sort of de facto result in these laws being implemented across the country. I think that's kind of some of the concerns that people are voicing. Weiner compares the situation to the early 1960s when Wisconsin moved to require seatbelts more than 6 years before the federal government did. How many lives have been saved because Wisconsin stepped out ahead of the federal government in '62 and required seatbelts, which started a domino effect nationally, he asked. California's speed assistance bill now heads to the desk of Governor Gavin Newsom, who has until the end of the month to decide whether he'll sign it into law. So I think the article is pretty interesting. Overall, I think it is probably an example of a little bit of overreach in California. On the other hand, any measure designed to any measure kind of designed to enhance safety, also has arguments in favor of it. But I thought the article is interesting. Again, California sets the standards for the rest of the country typically. So look for this to potentially be coming your way in 5 years. But please let me know what you think. I hopefully you enjoyed listening. Please leave your comments in the comment section below. And don't forget to like this video and to subscribe to my channel. Thanks.